Hello, welcome back to the You at Your Best podcast. I'm your host, Morgan. So, I'm actually for the first time in forever recording this podcast without also watching a baby because my baby is at my boyfriend's grandmother's house right now. So, it's a lot easier for me to record this episode, and honestly, it feels really refreshing being able to just record an episode. Like I talked about in a couple of episodes ago, I'm starting to utilize our help, and she really wants to watch her. She really wants to keep her during the week. So maybe we can start like her keeping her one day during the week so that I can record my podcast, get things done. And I think that would be really helpful because this podcast is literally like a second job for me, and I love it so much. It's the best job I have ever had, but it's also really hard whenever I also have a baby at home with me. And then on top of that, just like having a day to myself during the week would be great because I talked in a previous episode about how I'm trying to get it to where I work during the week instead of on weekends, but my boss wasn't able to do that for me. Me working weekends was actually the perfect schedule for everyone, so I have to continue working weekends, which is fine for now. I, of course, would rather not work weekends, but during the week, if she watches her one day so that I can just have a day to myself to clean up or record my podcast, do whatever I need to get done. And then also, here lately, it's like the only time that I can really record an episode is if I stay up late, but I've been so exhausted that I just don't have the energy to stay up late. So I just end up having to record an episode while she's with me. And I've really noticed that my episodes are a lot shorter here lately, and I don't really get as deep into what I'm talking about just because I am distracted, or like I have to go get her, or she starts crying for some reason, or I have to feed her, and then I kind of lose my train of thought. It's harder to make episodes and to make them flow right. I have noticed while editing that a lot of my episodes here lately haven't really been flowing very well. And don't get me wrong, I still think they're incredible episodes, and I'm not going to be like how I used to be and just delete them just because they're not perfect. But it is nice just being able to just record and be in that same trail of thought the entire time I'm recording without having to worry about her. And if I'm being honest, I didn't utilize that help because I felt guilty whenever it comes to my mom, because she works and she would love to be able to keep her. And it kind of felt like I was betraying my mom if I would let my boyfriend's grandmother keep our baby. And I don't know why I felt like that, because my mom, she has time to see her. She can see her on the weekends whenever she's off of work. We're actually going to start utilizing that too, asking her to come over on weekends more often and watching the baby so that we can go out and do things. And I've noticed that although I love being with her and I love spending time with her, whenever I spend more time away from her doing what I love, the short amount of time that I'm actually with her, I am more present, I enjoy being with her, and I'm not exhausted and overwhelmed. And I don't want my parenthood journey to become this thing where my daughter doesn't feel love because I'm just so exhausted. And that's how I've been feeling a lot here lately, because I haven't been utilizing the help that's around me. And there's multiple reasons for that. In the beginning, it was because of my anxiety. I just felt so protective of her. I was so scared that people would do things wrong. That's not really an issue as much anymore as time has gone on, and I've gotten over that postpartum anxiety for the most part. But I still, even like whenever I drop her off over there and I'm at home, I feel guilty because I'm like, I should be with her right now. Like I don't have anything to do. I don't have a specific reason. It's not like I need to clean or I need to go to a doctor's appointment. Like right now I have my podcast to record, but then for the rest of the day I really don't have anything else to do. I have to go drop off some packages, but that's it. And I kind of just feel like I should be with her right now because I should be the one that's taking care of her. And I'm feeling really emotional right now because it's like I feel like it's my job to take care of her 24/7, and I feel so guilty whenever I'm not. And sometimes it's like whenever I do utilize that help, I just feel guilty the whole time, so I don't feel like I actually enjoy that time that I have away from her. But I know that it's good for me and I know that it's good for her to spend time with other people. And being away from her for a little bit, it puts me in a better headspace so that whenever I am with her, I can be more present. And I know that I need to take care of myself before I take care of her, because I'm just going to be burnt out, and that's going to affect her way worse than me not spending every single day with her. So I think we'll do that, and like maybe on Saturdays start having my mom come over and watch her so that my mom can have those days with her too. Even though she is working full time and it is harder for her on the weekends, she would absolutely love to come over here with her and spend time with her. Okay, so that was kind of my update, I guess, but it's perfect for this week's episode, because for this week's episode, I want to talk about the type of parents that my boyfriend and I want to be. Growing up, we had parents who did their best, and they did their best with the resources that they had, and I don't want to come off as ungrateful, because I am so grateful for my family, so grateful for what they did for me. And growing up, I had a good childhood. I have a lot of good memories from my childhood, but that doesn't mean that there aren't some things that I would change that my family did growing up. I lived with, for the most part, my mom and my grandparents and my brother. So it was just, I kind of had like 3 adult figures in my life. But there's a lot of things that my boyfriend and I both want to do differently. And I think it's so great that we have the resources now to be able to, even average parents can do the research and be better and be the versions of parents that they see themselves being, because we have access to so much. We have podcasts, we have social media, and I think social media can be really harmful to us whenever we overdo it, or we start following pages that are kind of more shameful, or we get into this routine of being on social media all the time. But we can also utilize social media in such a great way, and if we follow accounts that make us feel good about ourselves, are positive, and are based off of research and not just random crap, because there's so much fear-mongering going on right now that it's exhausting. And as parents, we don't ever know what's good and what's bad, and I think that's why so many of us are losing our ability to follow our personal instincts and do things based off of our own personal morals, and raising our kids in ways that I feel like the older generations probably did better at than we're doing, because they didn't have all of those resources. They had like their parents or other parents around them, their pediatrician, and that's basically it, I think. And like maybe some books if some of them read books, but the average parent who wasn't highly educated or rich, they didn't know what was right to do. They just did what they thought was right in the moment. And of course, there were times when maybe they were so overwhelmed that they ended up getting that wrong, as all parents do at times. I know I'm saying a lot and kind of rambling, but basically what I'm saying is we are so fortunate to have access to information that can help us be better and help us learn and help us heal and help us grow as parents. But we also need to start trusting our own instincts and doing what we think is right, and raising our kids based off of our morals and not based off of scripts and what people tell us to do. We need to figure out what's important to us, not what everyone else is telling us that we should do. And of course, it's okay to listen to podcasts and listen to parenting advice, but take it with a grain of salt and don't let what other people say dictate everything, because that's whenever it becomes overwhelming. We see millions of videos that are telling us what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. This one thing is going to ruin our child. We're going to traumatize our kids. We're basically doomed as parents, and we're all going to traumatize our kids at least a little bit. That's just because we're human. But even though there is so much research on things that we should be doing and how to be a good parent and like the best way to raise kids, at the end of the day, we need to do what feels right to us, even if it's something that someone else says, like, oh, this is some random person on Instagram is like, oh, this is going to ruin your child if you do this. If it works for you, then do it. Follow your morals and then do that, even if it's not something that someone else would do, even if there's research that says it might be damaging to your kid. As long as you're not hurting your kids or emotionally bullying them, like, it's okay what we do. We don't have to follow the rules of everything else, and we don't have to do what everyone says. And I wanted to say that before I start this episode, because everything that I say, you do not have to do it. If it doesn't meet with your morals, you don't have to do any of these things or these tips that I'm giving, or they're not tips. I'm just basically explaining what we're wanting to do as parents and basically like our morals. And I'm lucky enough to have a partner who has extremely similar morals to me, and because of that, we can raise our daughter. Of course, there are some things that we do differently, but it's just small things that I have had to learn to let go of control of, and to just back off instead of anxiously hovering whenever he does anything differently than me. But I just wanted to say that because I don't want anyone to listen to this podcast and feel bad about themselves. And I'm not coming at this to shame anyone. That's not the energy that I want to put out, because I don't think that that's helpful in any way. And I don't want anyone to listen to this and feel like ashamed of yourselves, or this intense guilt or self-hatred or shame, whatever you feel. I don't want to make people feel like that. Of course, if you feel it, that's a sign that maybe you have something that you need to change, but don't let it consume you. Let that feeling drive you to do better. And remember that, like, there's nothing that you can change about the past. So if you do some things in parenthood right now that you wish you didn't do, I promise you there's a million things that I feel guilty about all the time that I wish I didn't do, especially whenever I'm at home with my baby all the time. It can be exhausting and draining, and I just find that I am so burnt out that I don't really want to spend time with her as much, and that's okay. That's normal human nature. That doesn't make me a bad parent or an evil person. It just makes me human. That's a sign that I need a break, and that's what I'm trying to do, is utilizing my resources so that I can have a break and I can enjoy parenthood while also enjoying life outside of parenthood, enjoying who I am. I have my podcast, and I think that really has helped me keep an identity outside of being a mom. But even then, I still need to take time for myself and let people watch my baby. And even though it's scary, because what if they don't do things right, or I know some things that my parents or my boyfriend's grandparents who raised him did that maybe didn't make us feel very great whenever we were younger, so it scares me that they're going to treat my daughter that way. But truth is, we can't protect our kids from everything. We have to let them be around people who act in different ways, because we can't expect that throughout life they're only going to be around kind people. They have to be able to see what other people do and see how other people act so that they can learn how to handle it in the right way, and we can help guide them in that way. And I'm not saying that my family or my boyfriend's family are bad people, but there's a lot of times like family members that maybe they say certain things like, oh, I'm so fat, or oh, I can't eat that, I'm gonna gain too much weight, or you have to eat all the food on your plate, and stuff like that. Just like ingrained things that I don't know why we as a society have decided are okay to tell people. But at the end of the day, whenever something like that happens, you're the parent, and what you teach your child, that's what's going to be the most ingrained into them. Their grandparents who keep them once a week or a couple of days a week, it's not going to change what you teach them. And it's important for them to have access to that. And I actually learned that through the Peds Doc Talk podcast. That's one of my favorite parenting podcasts. I recommend it to everyone. I didn't know how to handle that situation because I was so anxious about that kind of stuff, and I didn't know what to do. Like, what if we go to family dinners and people tell her that she has to finish her plate? Or what if people tell her that she can't play with something because it's a boy's toy? Or she can't dress a certain way because she's dressing like a boy and not a girl? And all of that stuff made me so anxious because I don't want that to happen to her. And also, I've had family members in the past comment on my body, tell me that I eat too much, tell me that I'm fat even, and I don't I don't want my daughter to go through that. And it can be really scary whenever we're so scared of people doing these things, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what other people do. What matters is what you do. And in that kind of situation, in the Pete's Dog Talk podcast, I would really recommend listening to that episode. If I remember, I can leave it in the description of this episode if you want to go listen to it, because it's so great. It was about parenting across generations. I think that's what it's called. And basically, like, what you do if you notice that, like, a family member or someone that's in your kid's life is saying something that you don't like, and you don't want them to say something like that to your kid. You don't have to say anything to them. Like, for example, if you have a little boy and he wants to get a princess doll or whatever, and you have a grandparent or a family member telling him, you can't have that, that's for girls. Instead of saying something to the grandparent, you can look at your kid and say, do you want that toy? I think that's an amazing toy. Let's get that for you. That was an example that they gave in the podcast too. I couldn't think of my own example in the moment, but I thought that was such an amazing example. And whenever I heard that, I was like, yeah, I can do that with situations. I don't have to be anxious about how they're treating her. And of course, there are things like she was saying how, like, you should choose specific things that are very important to you and your partner, or if you're a single parent, just you, and make those your non-negotiable boundaries while letting some things go. Like, if they sneak your kid a treat, like, it's okay. Like, I don't really want to teach my daughter to lie, so I feel like if they were to sneak her a treat, we could just say to them, like, you don't have to sneak a treat, like, she can have treats. And also, I don't want to teach her that treats are bad, and that's something that we're actually planning on doing, is not idolizing treats, so that she trusts her body and trusts what her body needs, instead of being like, oh, treat, I have to have a treat. So a lot of people say for that to give them their treat with their meal, which honestly for me that's amazing, because whenever I'm eating, I like to eat everything together. I like eating my dessert with the rest of my food. So putting dessert with the rest of the plate and not using dessert as like a treat afterwards or a punishment, like they can't have dessert if they act this way. Because even though, like, I know I'm not judging any parents who do that. I know it's hard, and I know you probably didn't even know, but whenever we do that, we are teaching them that those are the foods that are bad for you, and also we're putting those foods on a pedestal, and it's making them want them more, which is making it harder on us in return. And then also it's making them have a really unhealthy relationship with food, unhealthy relationship with their body, because they're not listening to what their body wants. They just are like, oh, I need a treat because it's exciting. So if we make it something that's just normal and don't take certain foods away from them, but also be realistic and talk to them about how they need certain foods to fuel their body, and how they need to listen to their body and listen to what foods they need, rather than just eating whatever. And I really struggle with binge eating. I always have. It's something that I'm still currently working on, and I don't know if I will ever stop struggling with it, but that's something that I do not want to push onto my daughter. I don't want to teach her those kind of habits, but I also, on the opposite end, I don't want to teach her that she can't have certain foods or certain foods are bad. I want to teach her that there are foods that are healthier, but also at the same time, it's okay to have treats. It's okay to have foods that have certain ingredients in it that we don't think are okay. Like, I know, like, the whole red food dye thing is going around, and I forgot what it is, like red 47, or I don't even remember, but I feel like that doesn't even matter. We're focusing on that whenever there are so many bigger issues. And literally, like, we could just stop eating that food as often too. Like, it's not that big of a deal, at least to me. But I kind of lost my train of thought. Basically, just that I didn't have that on the list, and I'm glad that I talked about that. But that's something that we want to do, is like really helping her have a healthy relationship with food, a healthy relationship with her body, and a healthy relationship with herself. And a huge part of that is being able to understand what your body needs and not what your mind wants. And with binge eating, that's a big thing. It's not what your body needs, it's what your brain wants, because it's that temporary comfort. And again, that's something that I really struggle with. I have dealt with binge eating my whole life, and the reason why we do it is because it's like this comfort, and it's only temporary. It doesn't make us feel better in the long run, but whenever we need something to make us feel better in the moment because our life is so overwhelming, or we're not dealing with our emotions in a healthy way because we weren't taught how to, we can start to use food as an outlet. We use food to make us feel better in that moment, and then afterwards we feel horrible about ourselves because we're like, I can't believe I just ate all of that. And even me, sometimes I'm so full, but I still keep on eating because it makes me feel better emotionally in the moment. And it really is a pattern that's really hard to get out of. And that, as much as I can, I want to protect my daughter from that so that she doesn't have to work extra hard like I've had to do to get out of that mindset. This episode is already really long and I haven't even started reading my list. So I'm going to start reading off some of the things on my list and we'll see where it goes from there. This episode may end up being 2 parts if it's super long, but the first one that I have is showing my kids that I respect their dad. And same with him. We want to show them that we have respect for each other. We're going to stand up for each other. We're going to be on each other's teams. And another thing that I think is really great is don't pin siblings together. Do more like siblings against parents. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but like in fun competition. It's really good to do that so that we can create a healthy sibling relationship. And also it helps them with kids that are their age too. They don't put themselves in competition with each other, and putting your kids at competition with each other, especially girls, it can create this thing where girls grow up to pin themselves against other girls. They find other girls to be their competition rather than to be their friend, and I don't want that for my daughter. So making it more siblings against parents, and also like showing them that I respect him enough that I am going to defend him. Like he's my boyfriend right now, but future husband, and they can't disrespect him. They can't be unkind to him, and respecting his wishes. If he says something to them that maybe I don't agree with, not saying it in front of them, waiting until afterwards to say something, and also trusting him to do things his way. If he parents a little bit differently than me, that's okay, because I know that at the end of the day, we have the same morals, we have the same goal, and it doesn't have to look exactly the same how we do it. And also having a mom and a dad, that's really good for kids. Or having 2 different parents who are different and are there for the kids for different reasons and utilize their own strengths, that's important. And telling him that he can't do things a certain way, that's really taking that away from him, taking away that chance to utilize his personal strengths whenever it comes to our kids. So just letting him do things his way. And if it's something that I really don't agree with, I can talk to him about it afterwards, but I'm never going to disrespect him in front of our kids by saying you shouldn't have done that right in front of them, or being like, no, you can't do that. And of course, I was going to say this in the beginning, but I forgot. There may be times where I don't do some of these things, and that's totally okay. We're not striving for perfection, we're just striving to be good, at least like 70% of the time. So remember while I'm saying this that we're not going to do all of this all the time, and we're not perfect. And the next one I have is like listening to them. No gaslighting them, no telling them that they're overreacting, no telling them to be quiet. I hate that saying that's like, kids are meant to be seen and not heard. That's kind of something that I grew up with, feeling like I couldn't really express myself fully, and my brother definitely dealt with that more than I did growing up. But I don't want to do that to my kids. I want them to know that they're safe. I want them to know that they can act as weird as they want. I want them to know that they're not a burden to us for being themselves. Growing up, I really did feel like who I was at my core wasn't good enough, because I was made to feel like I was too much. And I think that's why I became so shy, because I started isolating myself, going in and not really openly expressing myself because of them kind of telling me whenever I was younger, like, stop, or you're being annoying, or anything like that. It kind of made me feel like I'm too much. And I still struggle with that today, with feeling like I'm too much around people and being scared to fully be authentic and fully be myself. So I don't want to do that to my kids. I want them to know that they can openly express themselves in whichever way works for them. And just letting them have fun. I don't know why we need to shut them down. I know it can be overwhelming. And I know the reason why a lot of parents do it is because they're just exhausted. And that's why I will never judge. But I still think it's very important that we let our kids openly be themselves and create kids who are confident. A huge part of confidence is letting them be themselves, and also letting them, I didn't write this down, but letting them make mistakes as they're young instead of taking over and controlling. We need to let go of some of that control. We can't fix everything for them. It's good for them to be able to fix things by themselves while they're at home and while they're safe, because if they don't learn how to do it then, it's going to be a lot harder to do it whenever they're adults and they don't really know what to do because they've had everything done for them. That's actually something that my boyfriend struggles with. And I don't know if he's okay with me talking about that, so I'll ask him before I put that in here. I may have to edit it out, but growing up, his grandmother did a lot for him, and she cared so much because she's a nurturing person, as a lot of women are. We're naturally so nurturing, but because of that, it can be really hard to let go of that control. And he never really had the chance to do things for himself. So now that he's older and he's an adult, it's harder for him to make decisions on his own. It's harder for him to trust himself, to have that confidence. And that's something that he is working on. But I really want my kids to be able to trust themselves. And whenever kids don't need you as they become adults, of course they're always going to need us, but whenever they don't need us to do everything for them, it can be really hard to let go of that, but that's a good sign. It's a sign that we did something right. If they don't have to ask us every single little question, they don't have to run to us every time something messes up. And of course, I'm sure a lot of us wish that they would, because we still want to help, and it still is really hard to let go of that control. But we have to let go, and we have to let them do things their way and figure out life on their own without taking over, because they're never going to learn if we keep on taking over. Okay, the next one is setting boundaries and limits with our kids. I think with gentle parenting, what a lot of people get wrong is they're too permissive and they kind of just let their kids walk all over them. And that's why the term gentle parenting is kind of scary, because it can so easily become permissive parenting, where they are scared to set boundaries because they're scared that they're going to hurt their feelings. We have to set limits and boundaries. That's very important for kids. And even though they'll probably hate it, they may get angry at us for those boundaries and those limits that we set, they need it to feel safe. They need those boundaries. They need to know who is in charge so that they can feel safe within themselves. They can feel safe to do what they need to do. They know right from wrong. Setting boundaries is a really great way to teach kids right from wrong. And even though it's hard, and sometimes we deal with a lot of people pleasing, especially moms, and we don't want to hurt their feelings or make them mad, so we will sometimes just give in. But there are certain things that we need to keep those boundaries set and not give in. And of course there can be times where you're just exhausted and drained and you just give in, so you can have a break in that moment because you need that time, and that's something that you'll have to work extra hard to fix in the future. But sometimes we have to do that if we're overwhelmed. Like I say all the time, if you're overwhelmed, you don't have to focus on what's right to do in the moment. You just need to focus on getting better and feeling better and taking care of yourself, and then you can fix the situation afterwards. Okay, I have two more. The next one is saying yes more, and saying yes unless I absolutely need to say no. I don't know why, as parents, a lot of the time it just kind of becomes where we say no to everything just because it's an inconvenience to us. And I know, again, there are times whenever you have to say no for your mental health, and that's a time where it's a necessity. But the less we say no, the more saying no will work. Because if we say yes to things, if they want to go outside and play in the rain, what's the point in saying no? Just let them go play in the rain. It's fun. Let them have a childhood. Say yes to things more often so that whenever you need to say no in certain situations, it's okay with them, because it kind of creates a better relationship. They feel like you care about their feelings and what they want to do. I don't think many parents realize it, but whenever we're saying no to everything, our kids feel like we don't care about them. They feel like their emotions and how they feel isn't important to us. And I don't want to ever make my kids feel like that. I just think about my baby, like I want what's best for her, and I want her to know that I love her and I care about her. And a huge part of that is letting her do things that's fun for her. For kids, fun is so important, but a lot of the time as adults, we try to take that fun away from them. And whenever we take their childhoods away from them, they feel like they're forced to grow up too fast. And then as adults, they either get stuck in this cycle of being miserable all the time because they don't have fun, or they have to go the extra mile to get their childhood back and start acting a little bit more childish as an adult so that they can enjoy their childhood that they never got to have. Okay, and then the last one that I have, and this is probably the most important, it's being kind, gentle, and respectful to myself. And same with my boyfriend, being kind, gentle, and respectful to him. The best way to be the parent that you want to be is to be kind to yourself, to be humble and vulnerable, but also to remember that you're only human and you make mistakes just like everyone else, but your mistakes don't define you. I think a huge part of why so many parents struggle so much and a lot of the time end up with kids who feel like their childhood wasn't that great, it's because we're unkind to ourselves. The biggest thing that you can do for your kid is to be kind to yourself, not only because we treat them better, but because they're watching us. Kids learn through observation, not through what we tell them. Of course, what we tell them is a small part of that, but most of it is through observation. And if they're watching us be unkind to ourselves, they're going to learn to be unkind to themselves. So we have to be kind with ourselves. We have to talk kind about our bodies. As women, we need to stop saying, I hate my body, or I'm so ugly, or I'm so fat in front of our kids, especially our daughter, and men for sons. We have to stop doing that stuff because it is teaching them to feel that same way about them. And another thing that I didn't write down, we want to teach her that external validation is not important. Of course, sometimes as humans, we need external validation, but we want to teach her that how she feels about herself, her own personal validation, that's what's important. So whenever she does something, we're not going to praise her. Like if she's, for me growing up, I was always told that I'm so skinny and I was praised for being skinny. So whenever I started gaining weight, it was literally the worst thing for me. I felt horrible about myself, horrible about my body. I couldn't love myself because so many people gave me so much validation for being skinny. And it happened again whenever I became a parent. People giving me this validation, saying how great of a parent that I am and how amazing I am. Because of that, it felt like I had to keep up that facade, and it felt like I couldn't be vulnerable with the people around me because what if I'm vulnerable and they don't think I'm a good parent anymore? So giving kids that validation, even though we're doing it out of love, and I know for our baby, there are people who are going to do it. We already have so many people saying, she's so smart. And it makes me so anxious every time they do it because I know what that external validation can do to her. But at the same time, that's not a non-negotiable for us. We're not going to tell them, like, you can't tell her that she's smart, because with us, she's going to get that validation in different ways. And how you can do that is like, if they make a good grade, don't say, I'm so proud of you for making that good grade, because that's going to teach them to crave that external validation. Instead, say, I'm so proud of you for working so hard. I'm so proud of you for putting in the effort. And even if they make a bad grade, whenever you tell them that you're proud of their effort, they'll understand that it's okay because they put in the effort and they did their best. And that's all that matters, not the grade. And of course, like if there is an issue where they're constantly having really bad grades, that is something that needs to be addressed, but not through punishing them. Okay, I think that's it for this episode. I could sit here and talk on and on about this, but I want to have more stuff to talk about in future episodes. So I really hope you enjoyed this episode. This is something that I haven't really talked about much. A lot of the time I don't really talk about parenting. I talk more about personal issues. But I think in the future I probably will make more episodes about parenting, and I may repeat myself a lot. I do that in my episodes. Sometimes I say the same thing over and over again, and that's just kind of how I am, I guess. I really hope you enjoyed it. I really hope you got something from this, even if that just means feeling less guilty for the things that you do. And I feel like also I don't talk about parenting stuff as much because my main thing with my podcast is I want to make parents feel good about themselves. And oftentimes whenever we talk about how we want to parent, other parents could listen to it and maybe feel really bad about themselves, and I don't want to make people feel like that. For me, parent mental health is more important than talking about the child's mental health, just because fixing the parent's mental health first will in return help them raise a kid who is happier and more content. And that's why I think like that's the most important thing, taking care of yourself. And that is a part of why I don't make episodes about parenting as much, just because I don't want to make parents feel bad if there's something that they've done. But that's it for this week's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening. See you next Sunday.